Hello, and welcome to After the Call, where we answer the questions you have to help you get the most out of your CPI equipment. I'm Brandy Fuller, and joining me today is Dave Melvin, a 48-year vending industry veteran and one of our talented trainers here at CPI. Hey, Dave, how are you? Welcome.
I'm good, Brandy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Me too.
We've been talking about doing this for a long time now.
Yes, we have.
It's been at least about a couple of years, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So listeners, what we're doing is we get a lot of phone calls into our global help desk, and Dave and his team, the field service team, they also get a lot of calls. And we realize that some of those calls are repetitive, and we're only answering them one at a time to one person. So we thought we would do a video series or a podcast or something where we answer those questions to a global audience. Are you ready, Dave?
I'm ready.
Okay. So let's start with you, Dave. 48 years in the vending industry. That's a lot of experience.
It's a lot of years.
It's a lot of years. So why don't you tell me how you got started?
Right out of high school. It was actually my second job out of high school. I got to work with a vending company. Started as a route person. I did that 3-4 years. And manager comes to me one day and he says, "How come we never have service calls on your route?" And I said, "That's because I fix them when I see them broke." He says, "Oh, okay, novel idea."
Novel idea,
Yeah.
right?
So that led to, they asked if I wanted to be a service tech, and I said yes. So I never went back to running a route after that. But 37 years ago, I came to work at Crane.
Oh, wow, 37 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So have you ever done the math, Dave? Have you ever tried to figure out how many machines you've actually worked on?
I've probably had nightmares about it, but I'd venture to say 10,000 or better machines.
Oh, 10, that seems like a drop in the bucket in 48 years.
Probably so.
It probably is, right?
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Well, let's get into some questions and answers.
Sure.
So I pulled some reports and in preparation for this episode, and it was interesting to me that the number one question, the number one category of question, if you will, that we get is all around trouble when products are not being delivered. Does that surprise you?
No, I mean, you think about it. I mean, the number one complaint from anybody is either it took my money or I didn't get my product, which goes to product not dispensed.
Right. Product not being delivered. I guess it kind of makes sense since that's the whole purpose of the machine is
Sure.
to deliver the product.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think you pointed that out to me once or twice.
Maybe a couple of times.
Okay. Well, I pulled some reports, as I said, and when we're talking about product not being delivered, one of the top issues is around programming of the machines. And that kind of, honestly, that surprised me a little bit. I was expecting more mechanical maybe issues or something like that. So programming really kind of threw me for a loop. Can you help me understand why that might be one of the number one issues?
Well, let's talk BevMax.
Okay.
Because when I get a call that it's doing this or doing that, one of the first things I want to do is check the program to make sure that it's accurate. Somebody's not been in there pushing buttons, because that's a common problem.
A button pusher?
A button pusher. And I can try to tell people all the time, they walk among us.
They do.
Yeah, so you have to watch that. But anyway, so if it's a BevMax and they say, well, it keeps going too high, well, that's a shelf offset as far as a programming issue, but it could also be a mechanical issue if it's an older style BevMax that still has the mechanical home switch on the bottom of the cup. So with that being said, if there's a dirty, sticky home switch, then that would cause your cup to go too high.
A sticky switch?
A sticky switch.
Okay.
All right. So, but let's just say that everything's clean, pristine, and I go into the programming, I go to shelf offset, and it's set at 2,500.
Okay.
And I'm going to say the normal is 900. So I think we just identified your problem. We've got a button pusher. So change that to 900. Let's try it again. And bam, it's right on the money.
Okay. So maybe a good troubleshooting thing for our listeners would be they go in there and look at it, and if it's anything but 900, should they just try to change it to 900 and see what that gets them?
900 is always a pretty good set point.
Okay.
The two most common numbers for shelf offset are 700 and 900.
Okay.
But 900 is always a good place to start.
Okay. Awesome. What about the hook offset?
Hook offset. So that's the second part of the programming question that you'll get, is because if I go get the drink and then it goes to the port, the discharge frame, and then it just stops, doesn't deliver. And it might sit there or it might slowly go back home, but either way, I'll most likely get it out of service and it'll have X motor failure. It might even have X homing failure, but it's normally X motor failure. And so that's where I'm going to go look for a hook swipe issue in the program.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go in the program, I go to the hook swipe, I move the cup from home position over to the port delivery area, and what I'm looking for is nothing can touch the wall. So I'll look at the top, the Y motor cover, the lip of the cup, and the bottom carriage. Nothing can be touching or stop the movement. It has to stop on its own.
Okay. And which wall are you talking about? If I'm looking at a BevMax.
It'll be the barrier wall that separates the service from the cold.
Okay.
So that's the right side wall of the vending area.
Okay.
And so that's where your port discharge frame is. And so when it comes over, that's where it stops at, goes through the discharge into the port.
So tell me about the numbers on the hook offset. What am I looking for?
Sure. So I'm going to kind of give you a quick background. The numbers that we refer to is motor counts.
Okay.
So on the motor, there is a encoder. It's like a U-shaped sensor, and the motor, as part of the shaft that the motor has a wheel, and the wheel has windows, and each one of those windows is a count.
Okay.
So as the motor turns and that wheel rotates, those windows pop up, and that's a count. Each window is one count. So what we go by in the software side of it is 3,310 motor counts equals 1 inch of movement.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of harder to relate to that when I say shelf offset, it's 900, and it's going an inch too high. I'm going to tell you it's not a shelf offset problem because I can't lower that an inch. I can't take 3,310 off of 900. So that kind of leads me to believe I've either got a home switch problem or a motor encoder problem.
Okay.
I'm not getting the right count. Okay? But when it comes to the hook swipe, it kind of makes more sense from the home position all the way over to the wall where it delivers at is typically a number is 94,000. So I'm thinking, 94,000, and I got 3,310 equals 1 inch. Well, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So let me just repeat what I understood and tell me if I'm right.
Sure.
So if I'm starting at home and I'm going over to the port door, you said it was 94,000, what did you call them? Motor counts?
Motor counts.
Okay, 94,000 motor counts. And let's say I am half an inch away from where I should be. If I understood you correctly, I would take that 3,310 motor counts as my unit of measurement, and I would just cut that in half, and I would reduce my number.
Well, now if I'm a half inch away, I need to raise it.
I would increase my number.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Okay.
All right, but now real quick, because I know 94,000 is a pretty decent number, and if I stopped a half inch short, I got to think outside the box.
Okay.
I'm going to say, what's stopping that? If I raise that and it still stops at the same place, then I bet I have something hidden from view that's stuck underneath the cover. It could be a bolt, it could be a screw, a nut, or it could be a wrapper off one of your drinks that have, because of the condensation, it slipped off and now it's down there and the belt took it and it has it wrapped.
Okay, so
that's preventing me from achieving my number.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So maybe the first course of action would be I would just look in the bottom of the machine first if there's anything.
But the problem with that, Brandy, is it's so easy. People overlook easy.
Okay.
But to me, you want to start easy
Yeah.
and work your way up to the hard.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, no, that's why we're having this conversation because, sometimes we do overlook the simplest solutions.
You're
And,
exactly right.
you've got 48 years of experience that we're trying to squeeze out of you here. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, first course of action, look at the bottom of the cabinet. Let's make sure there's nothing impeding it. And then maybe we start adjusting numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, on the flip side, I have XY alignment. That can also be a cause.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, Dave, you just stole my thunder a little bit.
Oh.
I have a caller, and when I heard this question from this caller, my first instinct was, I think this is XY.
Oh.
And so I have the caller, and I'm going to have him ask the question, and I want you to tell me if I was right, because, I need that positive reinforcement. So, okay, let me get the caller on the line. Okay, go ahead, caller.
I'm at my bed max 5800. I have got the Cubs. It's at the delivery port with the product in it, and it did not deliver no product. And I was just wondering what's causing this problem. And the error I got is X motor fail error. So X motor error. So I would like to really know what the problem is with this. And thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, thank you, caller.
Well, Randy, you're right on the money. That fits right to our topic.
Hey, I want a crown or something. I feel like I need a medal.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, there's a good chance what the caller saw was when the cup came over and stopped at the port, it hit the wall.
Okay.
And so it says, wait a second, I didn't achieve my numbers because the wall was in my way. So it says, I've got an X motor failure.
Okay.
So it's kind of generic.
Yeah.
So with what the caller said, the very first thing I would have the caller do is look at my vertical alignment. So that would be your XY. So X is left to right, Y is up and down.
Right.
And so I need to make sure that when the cup is at the home position, that the cup, the inside of the cup sleeve, is the same dimensions as your left and right gate at the home position. So they need to be properly aligned. So if the cup is to the right a little bit or to the left, whatever, I can lift the cup up, and underneath of it is a clamp that's attached to the belt. I loosen those two screws on the belt clamp, and I move the carriage left to right to get the proper alignment. Once I have that, then I go to my hook swipe, test it, and find out what adjustments I need to make, higher or lower, whatever, or it might be right on the money after I make my vertical alignment.
One thing I want to mention real quick for our listeners. So we do have a YouTube channel, and you talked a moment ago about shelf and hook offset.
Yep.
We also have XY alignment.
Yep.
We have some videos on our YouTube channel that you can find at cranepi.com/help center. And we have a tutorial all about how to adjust the XY and how to adjust the shelf and hook offset.
Right.
So I wanted to quickly mention that before I forgot. So thank you, Dave. When you said that you would loosen the screws and move the gate, that's what triggered that memory is when we did that video, there was a screw that was just rambling around the bottom of the machine.
And that caused a problem.
And it did, and we captured that on the video.
Exactly.
Awesome. So XY alignment, Dave, according to the data on the BevMax, that is the number 2 most asked question. Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like you know what you're doing.
I've had a week or two of experience.
You've had a week or two. You've had 1 or 2,000, maybe? No. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to make sure that we talked about that I thought was really interesting is I've sat in a few of your training classes, and you always mention in those training classes something that I feel like we should broadcast all over. So let's take the opportunity. If you have the ear of a vending manager or a vending company owner, what would be your advice to them about new route drivers?
The very first thing I think every route driver should go through is an onboarding. And part of that onboarding is riding with a service tech, because those service techs are going to see and visit all these calls where something is loaded wrong, or something's overloaded, or something's not cleaned properly, or something's not maintained properly. The route person is the face of the vending company. So they're the eyes, the ears, and the voice of the customer. And so they really need to take into consideration everything that they do, everything that they see, everything that they hear.
Okay.
And so with that, they can come back at them and say, yes, but if you do this, then we won't have any upset customers. If we don't have upset customers and the machine doesn't break, you make more money.
Right, because I did learn through this that route drivers are often paid on commission.
Yeah, most of them
So
are.
if the machine is down, then so is their paycheck.
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
So this triggered me when I was reading the reports, is because the third most common question, or I guess most common answer we give, has to do with the slides in a BevMax. And I know that that's something that the route drivers can and should be looking at. So why don't you talk about slides and the importance of maintaining those?
Yeah. Well, if I get a call, and this is, I won't say it's common, but I get a lot of, I get to the machine and there's bottles and cans laying in the bottom of it. So with that, there's a lot of preventative that I can do. The slides need to be clean. They need to be slick. And you'll hear me say that's quite often, clean and slick.
Yep.
So the slides have to be cleaned. And then after you clean them, you have to lubricate them.
What do you lubricate them with?
We do it with, what we recommend is a food grade silicone spray or wipe.
Or wipe. Okay.
Yeah. So with that being said, once you wipe it down, clean it, and you wipe it down with the lubricant, then you load your product.
So that actually kind of surprises me. I mean, how nobody's really accessing the inside of the drink machine. How would they get so dirty?
All right. So we all like to think about how clean our drinks are.
Sure.
The inside is pretty sanitary. They do a wonderful job with the inside of the bottles. It's the outside of the bottles and cans, because they go from warehouse to truck, from this container to that container. And this world is dirty.
Oh,
there's dirt floating everywhere.
I see. Okay.
So I get that and I transfer that to the machine.
Yep.
And so that goes off the can bottle onto the slides.
Onto the slides.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I understand that now. So if I'm a route person and I walk up to a BevMax and let's say I've got 3 slots that are empty, I should just take a rag with some all-purpose cleaner and just give it a good clean and then quickly lubricate it?
You want to stay away from an alcohol-based.
Alcohol-based, okay.
Because the alcohol-based will cause that plastic to dry out.
Okay, so a non-alcohol-based cleaner.
Yeah.
And then the food-grade silicone directly after.
And I tell you, if we can get the businesses to get the route people to do that as the columns are empty, you will actually see your calls on BevMaxes go down by 50% or better.
Oh, that's your guesstimate.
Yeah, that's my guesstimate.
That's your guesstimate.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I would imagine it sounds like, I mean, if I'm walking up and the slides are already empty, it should just take a couple seconds.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. That's great. So let's transition really quickly, Dave. We've got just a couple minutes left. So let's transition to merchant. So we've got the ambient and the combo.
Right.
Give me some high level 2 or 3 things that we can do to prevent maintenance issues
The most common thing when it comes to a merchant, whether it's combo or ambient, is they both have spirals, and you can only put so many in each slot. So, and I'll give you an example of a 15 count spiral, which is typically a candy spiral.
Okay.
And say that I've got it to where it's on a pastry tray, and I try to put the big fat honey buns in it or cinnamon buns, then I have to squash them in there. So that means they don't fit too well. They don't look good.
And who wants a squashed honey bun?
Exactly. Well, now if I'm real hungry, I'm going to try.
Okay.
But I'm going to watch the spiral turn and it gets stuck.
Oh.
But because we have sure vend, we're going to keep trying to turn that till it drops. But it can't drop. So what that does is that tears the spiral coupling up at the very least. At the worst case, it would strip the gears out of the motor.
I see.
So that's part of that onboarding. We make sure that we train the route person the proper techniques on loading.
Right. So proper product in the location.
Yeah. And the other thing, when I go to combo, because the locations, they're not clean and pristine. There's dirt on the floors, whatever. So that dirt gets pulled in by the compressor.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a good idea for them to carry a little brush with them and take the port out and clean the condenser coils. The condenser coils, Brandy, think of a radiator in a car, the fins, or an AC unit, those old window units.
That I understand.
Okay, so that's what it kind of looks like.
Okay.
And so we don't have a filter per se, but there's in the combo it does have a screen, so
Okay.
the screen would have to be clean. But it's just a good idea to check that periodically and keep that clean because it just helps the product stay.
So it just sounds like maybe 20, 30 seconds here, 60 seconds there could just save a whole bunch of effort.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. That's awesome to know. So let's keep in that same vein and let's talk about Cody. Now, when I started with Crane, Cody was the first machine I worked on, and it was unique because that's the only machine we manufacture that we actually produce the product that's going to be consumed.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about our hot drink machines, which is our Cody machine here in the US, when we think about that, what prevents product from vending in that?
Well, you'll hear me say clean, filled, and working.
Yep.
So I want to make sure my machine is clean, which the mixing bowls. And I tell everybody you can never clean too much. So every time you open the door, clean something.
Okay.
Clean something.
You sound like my mother, Dave Melvin.
Well, I had a good mother.
I had a good mother too,
There
but
you go. It sounds like it. So with that being said, if I got to make sure my mixing bowls are clean, and something that doesn't happen too often, but I got to make sure I put the right product in the right canister.
Why does that matter?
Well, if I don't want to put French vanilla in the hot chocolate.
Well, I guess yeah.
But I see this. It doesn't happen often, but it happens enough, and it's one of those hard ones that nobody figures out. And I'll have them empty the coffee canister, and what you find is the route person mistakenly dumped the freeze-dried decaf in with the fresh brew coffee. So with that type of powdery mix, when it gets into the brewer, it actually clogs the brewer up. In essence, I don't get a cup of coffee.
So the freeze-dried coffee going through the brewer makes a mess.
Doesn't makes a mess.
I see. Okay.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So another thing that we can teach route people is, not to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, there's one other thing, Dave. I know we're running low on time here, but I think it's important. I'm wondering if you're thinking what I'm thinking. What is the one other thing that we both know that happens?
It's common across all machines.
It is. Should we say it together?
Yeah.
Let's try. 1, 2, 3. Two flash air.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So a 2 flash air on a bill validator, and on our current model, it's actually flashing on the outside of the machine. You can see it before you open the door. 2 flash air is because somebody neglected to put coins in the coin mech.
So it can't give change.
So if I can't give change, we disable the validator.
Yep. That makes sense.
That's the number one issue.
Yeah. And that's another video that we have. There's some other things that we talk about in the video, but we do have a video on the 2 flash air that might be helpful to people. And again, that's at cranepi.com/help center. And I'll be sure to link that in the details of this podcast so people can find it easily.
Good.
So awesome, Dave. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending this time with me here on our first ever episode of After the Call. I had a great time.
Yep, me too.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our first episode here of After the Call. If you have any questions or if you'd like us to cover something in a future episode, please leave a comment or email us at afterthecall@cranepi.com. And please be sure to join us next time as we continue to explore the questions you have that help you get the most out of your CPI equipment. Until then, I'm Brandy Fuller. Keep that equipment running.